Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that I would give my little fight review and overall the fight aftermath and my fight breakdown of the main event on the pay per view that ended up happening on Triller TV, I believe, today, or Triller Fight Club, whatever the app is called. This is my first time using it, so I'm a little bit late to the party. I'm a little bit new overall to the app because I just don't think that there's been that many fights that have been that appealing on the app. But hey, I thought that I would tune into this fight because I heard about this fight, I believe, a couple of months ago. This fight now has been set up for a long time, especially ever since I believe Josh Taylor ended up relinquishing one of his titles or vacating one of his titles. Who, of course, Josh Taylor is the former completely undisputed 140 pounder within that division. But of course, he wanted to rematch Jack Catterall because a lot of people, including myself, believe that it was a little bit of a controversial decision because a lot of people truly believe that Jack Catterall probably should have won that fight, including myself, even though it was a decently competitive fight. But of course, what that led to was the WBC title. I believe the only title that Josh Taylor right now doesn't have within his grasp. I could be wrong about that. Maybe there's another one I can't necessarily remember. But this led to the title fight between Regis Prograis and Jose Zepeda, two very decently tough contenders at the 140-pound division. Not really as good as Josh Taylor, but they've left their own mark within the weight division, and it was going to be a very particularly interesting matchup. And of course, this fight was on pay per view. I didn't really think that it was worth a pay per view, but I got it anyway because there really wasn't much to watch this weekend. But it still was particularly interesting. I was going to be very interested to see how competitive the fight was and overall, who maybe would come out on top. But of course, for those of you that did not end up hearing the results, Regis Prograis not only was able to beat Jose Zepeda, he pretty much was able to beat him down throughout the whole entire fight, and he was able to dominate him. And what I'll say is this: I cannot really say that I'm pretty much surprised. The fight pretty much went down pretty much almost to a T, exactly how I predicted. The only thing that I probably got wrong in my prediction is that I think I predicted Regis Prograis to win by unanimous decision. And of course, he ended up getting a TKO overall within, I believe, the 11th round. Now, unfortunately, because I did not know this fight was happening this week until about tonight, I was not really able to put out a fight prediction video. So I cannot really say with 100% certainty, or at least prove to you guys or you people that overall my fight prediction was, correct overall in that way. But overall, I did predict Regis Prograis to win this fight. I thought that he was going to win this by unanimous decision. I think that I predicted the fight to be about 9 rounds to 3. And I'll give Regis Prograis credit. He was even more dominant than what I personally thought he was going to be. I thought maybe Jose Zepeda with his power and maybe overall with a little bit of his counterpunching ability, maybe he would be able to get about 3 rounds in the fight. But one thing I've really always noticed about Jose Zepeda, and that I've really always said about him, I reviewed a video a very long time ago from Dante's Boxing Nation, and if you've been around my channel for quite a long time, you might remember this, or at least me stating this. There was a video a while ago where Dante was talking about Canelo Alvarez, his secret man crush, when it comes down to it. And he was basically stating that Canelo Alvarez is an average Mexican fighter. And anyone who believes that someone like a Canelo Alvarez, with what he has accomplished and his clear skill set that he has, that he's an average Mexican fighter, really doesn't know their soul about boxing, really doesn't know shit about boxing. An average Mexican fighter is someone like a Jose Zepeda. Someone that overall, if he's able to slip through the cracks and maybe one day win a championship off a fighter that really is not that elite in a division that is kind of looking for the next up and comer or the next guy that might be willing to take the challenge, that's overall who Jose Zepeda is. If he ever is going to become a legitimate champion in the near future, it's probably going to be the same way that a Isaac Pitbull Cruz is going to become a champion, or overall the way that Orlando Romero is going to become a champion. I've never really been thoroughly impressed with Jose Zepeda. I think that he's a very tough fighter. I think that he has a lot of heart, but I think when you talk about his actual skill set, I think that he's a very one-dimensional fighter. Now, he can fight a little bit on the back foot and he can fight coming forward. Most of the time, from what I see, he likes to put on the pressure. But just because you can fight going backward and forward does not mean that you're necessarily a multi-dimensional fighter. What you have to be as a multi-dimensional fighter is not only being able to fight in a multitude of styles, but you have to have a different amount of attacks. And Jose Zepeda really does not have overall the blessing of having overall the fight IQ or the boxing ability or the boxing skill of having a multitude of attacks. What Jose Zepeda really likes to do is that usually he tries to outbox people in the middle of the ring. He will sometimes outbox you or try to outbox you on the back foot, and if he wants to put on the pressure, he will put on the pressure, which a lot of the times that he does. And a lot of the times he'll try to stick the jab in your face, then throw a left cross and probably capitalize with it off a right hook. And if you're able to get past that left hand, if you're able to get past his power, he really doesn't know what to do after that. And that pretty much overall was shown within this fight. Once Regis Prograis was able to get in his grill and make him very, very uncomfortable, he really did not show a great amount of counter punching ability on the back foot. He has decent counter punching ability on the back foot against more limited fighters, like that one Puerto Rican fighter he fought not too long ago, Jose Vargas or whatever his name was when it came down to it, the up and comer, But Jose Zepeda, once again, he's not really going to beat anyone elite. He's never going to beat a Josh Taylor. He's never going to beat a Regis Prograis. I don't even know if he would beat a Jose Ramirez. And at one point in time, I believe they fought. Apparently, some people believe that it was a controversial decision. I would have to watch it for myself. But I don't think that Jose Zepeda even has the skill set of a Jose Ramirez. He certainly proved that he did not have the same skill set as a Regis Prograis. And Regis Prograis, in some ways, fights a little bit similar to that of a Jose Zepeda, someone that overall would try to stand in the middle of the ring, try to counter you with his left cross. When it comes down to it, stick his jab in your face and maybe counter it overall with the right hook, because some people forget that both of these fighters are southpaws. But what Regis Prograis has better than Jose Zepeda is that, all in all, first of all, he has more of a multitude of game plan attacks. On top of that, he has way better head movement on the inside. Sometimes Regis Prograis' head movement could be a bit better, especially after certain attacks. He got caught, especially against Josh Taylor, with that. And the reason why Josh Taylor was able to be successful and overall show some of the deficiencies in Regis Prograis' game, which sometimes is his lack of defense, with his hands always not being up, or with his hands at times overall not always being up, and overall with Josh Taylor being able to go inside and go to the body, which was a very good plan of attack, and overall showing some of the deficiencies that Regis Prograis had, was because Josh Taylor is a multi-dimensional fighter. He's someone all in all that can fight on the inside, he can fight on the back foot, but also if his plan A is not working, if his first plan of attack is not working, he can go to plan B, potentially even plan C. Jose Zepeda is not one of those type of fighters. And you've seen overall that once his plan A was not working, he really was lost in there. He had no idea what to do. I thought that Jose Zepeda won the first round. Every round after that, I gave the Regis Prograis, and I really didn't even think that it was particularly close, at least in my opinion. And like I said, once you really overall pressure Jose Zepeda, once you really overall show him that you're not going to be intimidated by the power and that you can get past that left hand, he really doesn't know what to do with you. And certain guys with the commentating team, they said, well, Jose Zepeda, he's really got to try to make this a war. He's really got to try to get in there. It's the same thing that a lot of the people with Deontay Wilder, they were claiming with Tyson Fury. They were saying, well, if Deontay Wilder wants to win this fight, he's got to throw at this certain time. Why does he just keep trying to throw the right hand? Why doesn't he throw this? Why doesn't he throw that? You know why that is? That's because they've relied on it for so long that they really don't know any other type of way of fighting. And they're so comfortable overall with that style of fighting because it's been so successful with them in the past that they would rather stick overall with that when it comes down to it than rather trying something new and something that they're not that comfortable with. Daniel Cormier, the all-time great MMA fighter who was a great striker and a great wrestler, of course, probably most known for losing the John Jones overall 2 fights when it came down to it, or 1, I guess, if you want to say, for the fights overall without steroids, at least allegedly when it comes down to it, allegedly without steroids. But Daniel Cormier said something very interesting when he was able to beat Anthony Rumble Johnson, who actually recently just died, of course, rest in peace. But he was able to say something that was very particularly interesting. And Anthony Rumble Johnson, what he had was a wrestling background. And what DC Cormier stated was that I knew that eventually he was going to go with the wrestling, because people took a look at Anthony Rumble Johnson back then, and including myself, in the rematch against Daniel Cormier. When the striking was not working, Anthony Rumble Johnson was going to the wrestling of Daniel Cormier. And you're not going to beat Daniel Cormier in a wrestling match. That's not going to work. That's like trying to beat Khabib Nurmagomedov in a wrestling match. That's not going to fly. Daniel Cormier is a tier A plus S tier wrestler. That's not going to work. But the reason why I did that is because Anthony Rumble Johnson, a lot of the times when he has troubles with his opponents, he overall goes back to that wrestling overall to get himself out of trouble. It's the same thing with Jose Zepeda. When Jose Zepeda is in trouble, he doesn't really have a multitude of game plan attacks. He pretty much has that left hand and that right hook, and that pretty much is about it. If you're able to get past that, you pretty much can beat Jose Zepeda. That's why I'm not really surprised that Regis Prograis overall beat him to shreds. I'm not really surprised that this fight was not competitive. I really didn't expect it to be that competitive, but it was even less competitive overall than what I personally thought that it was going to be. So congratulations to Mr. Regis Prograis. He proved that he was the better fighter of the two, which is pretty much what I predicted. But the big question now is what is in store for both of these men a little bit later on down the line. Well, for Jose Zepeda, he's overall going to have to eventually climb back up overall to get a title shot if he even is ever again going to get a title shot when it comes down to it. I would like to see Jose Zepeda versus someone like that overall of a Teofimo Lopez, or maybe someone else within the division, maybe someone like a Montana Love, who, from what I know, is coming off of a loss. I would like to see Jose Zepeda against a fighter like that. Pretty much a crossroads fight. And if Jose Zepeda is not able to win that fight, to be quite honest with you, and this is not really my place to say, but at least in my opinion, there really wouldn't be much left for him. He probably should just retire. It just is what it is, because he would take way too much damage, in my opinion, against the elite of the elite fighters. As for Regis Prograis, if Josh Taylor is actually able to beat Jack Catterall in the rematch, which in my prediction, he more than likely would. I think that he would win by unanimous decision. Wouldn't surprise me if it was a stoppage either. But I would predict Josh Taylor to win that rematch against Jack Catterall, which I believe happens a little bit early on next year in 2023. I would like to see a rematch between Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis. I would not favor Regis Prograis to beat Josh Taylor because I think that Josh Taylor is just the better all-around fighter, at least by a little bit, but probably by a level. But when it comes down to it, let me just state this. If Regis Prograis somehow was able to pull off the upset and was able to beat that of Josh Taylor, would I be shell-shocked? I wouldn't be shell-shocked. I just wouldn't expect it. I would give Regis Prograis about a 30 to 35% chance. I think that Josh Taylor would come in with the confidence in the rematch. I think he already knows what Regis Prograis is about. I think that both of them are very decent athletes. I think that both of them are somewhat, more well-rounded, especially than that of Jose Zepeda. They both have flaws, but I think Regis Prograis is more flawed. He has a lesser defense, in my opinion, than Josh Taylor. He has worse head movement at times. And on top of that, I just think that Josh Taylor, that he has a little bit more of a multitude of game plans, at least in my opinion. Because to be fair to to really talk about Regis Prograis, sometimes when his offensive attack doesn't work, sometimes he does not always result to a great plan B either. Because he didn't really result to a great plan B against Josh Taylor. So it is what it is. Because once Josh Taylor started going to the body and once he really started pressuring Regis Prograis looked a little bit confused in there. So it's going to be very interesting to see what both of these fighters are going to do later on down the line. As for Jose Zepeda and Regis Prograis, they pretty much proved to be what I thought they were. Regis Prograis, in my opinion, I don't think that he's an A-plus fighter by any means, but he's probably around in the A-minus level, somewhere around there. He's a very decent fighter. I just wouldn't say that he's really a great fighter. He's a very good, maybe borderline decently great fighter, but I really don't think that I would qualify him there when it comes down to it. I think that he's a very, very good fighter. Very good fighter. Almost on the level of, somewhat, I don't even want to say great, but, let's say, almost a league between great and very good, if there was one. That's what Regis Prograis reminds me of. He's probably an A-minus level fighter, so it is what it is. But anyways, when it comes down to it, all in all, I thought that the fight was very particularly interesting. Great performance by Regis Prograis. Pretty much overall what I expected from both of these fighters. It just is what it is. Great performance by Regis Prograis. As for Jose Zepeda, I don't really know where he goes from here. But overall, once again, if he is going to get a title fight, he is going to have to work himself up. Do I believe that he's ever really going to become a legitimate champion? Not if not if the division actually has some decent talent overall. But let me also state another possible contention, state another fight to where it could be very particularly interesting if Regis Prograis, for example, does not get the rematch against Josh Taylor. A fight that Regis Prograis might want to look at, and as well as the fighter that I'm about to mention, is the fight overall either against Arnold Barboza or Teofimo Lopez. I would love to see a fight personally between Teofimo Lopez and Regis Prograis. Because Teofimo, I still see the talent within him. It's just going to be very interesting to see how he handles fighters that are also similarly talented, but also fighters that are going to be the same size as him. because Tiafimo, of course, got off to a very great start, a very early start when he was able to beat Vasily Lomachenko. Kind of like Fernando Vargas back in the day. I believe he was able to beat Winky Wright, and then, of course, he got his match against Felix Tito Trinidad. So the question will be about Teofimo Lopez is this. Is he going to end up as another Fernando Vargas, or can he rebuild his career? It's going to be very particularly interesting. But anyways, that's really about it for today. More videos are going to come tomorrow, I believe, that I've already done. I just decided not to post them today, but overall, hope you guys overall have a very good night. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the fight, if you were able to get the fight. But anyways, that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.